The Japanese said, big, hairy, white man, screaming pop songs in a skirt and also pro wrestling. We love it. You get put into a pop group with a pair of teenage girls. Okay, firstly, you're a dancer now, figure it out. And on top of that, this whole idol culture. Until you're familiar with that, that's extremely confusing because we don't have anything like that in the Western world. Half the audience that's into this Japan stuff and half the audience isn't. What you're really selling is...
Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Ladybeard.
Hey, Unpacking Japan podcast. It's Ladybeard coming at you through the web waves direct from Osaka, Japan. Osaka! I'm here today with my homie Toby. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very good, thank you.
If your toes are numbered A, B, C, D, E, then toe B, I assume, would be the one next to the big one or next to the small one. So which toe would you prefer to be?
I have no idea how to answer that question.
Of.
But thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me today. Great to be
Bringing
here.
so much energy to the table.
That's what we
probably
do.
Destroying a few eardrums of
Yes.
our listeners,
Yes.
right?
And
from
the
start.
studio, just so you know, this table's not sturdy enough to handle the next hour and a half. So prepare to need a new table by the end of this.
You are the singer of Baby Beard.
Yes.
You are a stuntman,
Yes.
a wrestler.
Yes.
You are a media personality in Japan
Yes.
and have been for over a decade.
That's right. Yeah, who would have thunk it? Yeah, we're on year number 11 now. Who would have thunk it?
So let's go back to the beginning. You're from Adelaide, Australia.
Adelaide, Australia, that's right.
How did you kind of get your first contact with Japan?
Well, we'll start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. I've been in Japan for 11 years, but the Ladybeard story is longer than that. I started life as an actor and a voice actor and a stuntman. And I finished acting school in Adelaide. Then I moved to Melbourne where I had an agent. And I was also training in Hong Kong style cinematic action with an Australian who had spent 9 years on the Jackie Chan stunt team and then come back to Australia and started his own team. So I was on his team. And so I'm training with him. There was no acting work in Australia at the time because we signed this fair trade deal and there was no work. So I'm there one night with my trainer after training, complaining about the fact that I was going for these auditions and there was no work. And he said, well, you should go to Hong Kong because if you go to Hong Kong, you're going to be a minority. So your pool of competition is so much smaller. So he's like, you've got the skills from a performance perspective. You've got the skills from a martial arts and stunt perspective. You learn quickly. So you've got the things that you need. He's like, I'll hook you up with a couple of people. Just go to Hong Kong. And he's like, go and get onto a couple of sets, get on a couple of film sets or TV sets, and then you will come back to Australia more employable, right? So the original plan was to go overseas for 3 months, and I've now been overseas for 21 years. So,
What is Hong Kong style action movies?
so the Hong Kong style is the Chinese kung fu movie style. So you're talking the Jackie Chan style. So things happen compared with Western action. Things happen very, very quickly. So in the same period of time, in a Hollywood type fight, there might be, say, 5 hits or something that happen. But in the Hong Kong style, you could have, say, 20 hits that happen at the same time. So everything's very ba, 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 ba. It tends to be quite rhythmic. So it tends to be quite musical with the things. Like we used to train choreography to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and everything's quite rhythmical, right? So that was kind of the style that I learned with my old trainer, Paul. We could talk for a long time deeply purely about Hong Kong action and the way that you do stunts in Hong Kong cinema. It's really quite amazing. But I had never seen that before. I trained stunts and everything before, but I trained in the Western style. And so learning the Hong Kong style from my old trainer, Paul, was quite remarkable. Let me tell you, Hong Kong stunt people, men born without fear. Just ridiculous. Paul would tell me that the Hong Kong Stuntman Association's motto was risk life, save money.
Wow.
So that's the level of person you're dealing with when you're training, right? So it's like, what are you talking about? You don't want to triple backflip off of our balcony whilst on fire into a pit of broken glass. What's wrong with you?
Are you saying you care about your spine?
No, look, spine, schmine.
You can replace it.
Replaceable. We'll get a prosthetic.
So what was it like then? When you get to Hong Kong, you went there for 3 months and
Yep.
you ended up staying overseas for over 20 years.
Well, yeah, I ended up in Hong Kong for 6 years. So I went and there was a lot more opportunity for me there than there had been in Australia. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, this is exciting because this is a place where I can actually be an actor and a stuntman and so forth. So I started working and, that 3-month plan went out the window because I had a bunch of jobs already booked. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm staying. And that was very, very interesting. I played a lot of kind of evil white men in Chinese kung fu movies and on TV and so forth, which was a hilarious job. And I was also dubbing anime into English. So yeah, which is very interesting. So here's what would happen. When anime gets dubbed, they have the American dub that the American studios do, and that will be on the Blu-rays and DVD that get sold and so forth. But for cable TV in Asia, what they do is they don't want to pay all the money to get the license for the American dub. So they get a team of non-famous actors, locals, and they redub it with these new voices. And then that gets distributed on cable TV in Asia. Yeah. So like on cable TV in Asia at the time, like in Hong Kong, you have the choice to watch anime in 3 different languages. So you got original Japanese, you have the local dub, so in Hong Kong that's Cantonese, and then you have the Asian English dub. So we were doing the Asian English dub. So I dubbed a lot of different anime. We did Gegege no Gitaro, we did Chibi Maruko-chan, we did Gurren Lagann, Black Butler, several Gundam series. Not just anime, we did live action stuff as well, so several Kamen Riders, we did some Ultraman. We did all these properties, which, you know, now that I'm in Japan, I realized just how much of a big deal these shows really are. We would sit there dubbing and we wouldn't really realize, you know,
like just in a small studio.
Well, yeah, you're in a studio the size of this table, and there's one mic, and there's 8 actors crowded around this one mic. So this is quite interesting. The person who's got the lead role sits right in front of the mic, and the script is here in front of you. And so they're reading off the script and they're doing their dub, and there's a screen in front of you, so like you're the monitor. So you're watching the show, and you have to match the characters' mouths as they move. So you got your script, trying to match the mouths. The main character sits right here. The supporting mains sit right here, and then the next most important people are standing either side of their shoulders, and then the smaller characters kind of sitting on the edges and standing on the edges. So when you start, obviously you have smaller roles. So at the start, this is what your job is. I got to do this with this mic and be on this mic somehow, not be on mic at the same time. Let me show you. So when you first start, you're standing over here. And then, when it's time to talk, you lean in and do your line. And then cut back again.
And everyone has to move around. And
yeah, and you gotta, but you can't make any noise, because if your fabric moves, like if you make fabric noise where you move, that gets picked up by the mic. So it has to try and silently move around. And keep in mind, it's 8 people in a tiny booth. There's no oxygen, so everyone starts to yawn or whatnot. And then if someone needs to cough or something, you need to just hold it until there's a cut. And so you'd be holding. Something would happen, they call cut, and everyone would go, everyone's movement and noises that they had to get out, you'd have to wait till cut. And if you made noise and you interrupted someone's take, this was really like, because it could have been, you know, it could have been really difficult, it could have been really going really well, could have been a great performance, but now you've ruined it just with fabric noise or something, so you got to go again. Then of course that slows down production and so forth, so now the director's putting in more pressure on you to hurry up. So that was, despite those challenges I just told you, that was a highly enjoyable job. I really enjoyed it. I could happily have gone and dubbed anime every day of my life for the rest of my life. It was really a great job.
But you did that for a time in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and eventually life led you to Japan.
Well, here's what happened. So I was in Hong Kong. I'm a stuntman. I'm an actor. I'm a voice actor. Life is joyous. It was wonderful. And I'm like, well, I actually did it. I actually became an actor, as opposed to, you know, a lot of people who go to acting school and they say, yeah, I'm an actor, but really they're a waiter who does a commercial once every 2 years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I actually did it. This is amazing. Cool. And then the 2008 financial crisis came along and it wiped out everything overnight. So I remember it was like a Thursday or something, and we'd been dubbing during the day. And, you know, I left the dub studio, went to the gym or whatever, got home, and I'm checking my emails. And there's an email there from my boss saying, all our jobs just got cancelled. Await further notice, and we encourage you to find alternate sources of income.
Overnight.
Yeah. We're like, what? So it was so, it was so strange. So you're like, okay. And then, yep. So do we come into the studio tomorrow? No, don't come to the studio.
Wow.
Okay. Do we come to the studio next week? No, don't come next week. Do we ever come to the studio again? So things have just been nailed overnight, right? All the other things as well, the movies, the TV, everything dried up straight away. The broadcasters, what they did is, instead of making new productions, because you know the economy went bad all over the world, and every sector was affected. What they would do is, instead of getting new productions, they would just play reruns. So now all new productions, because I only worked on new productions, that was all. There was just no work for that, right? So back to this problem. There's no work. I had the same thing in Australia. There's no work, right? Now I found work in Hong Kong, but now back to this. Now there's no work. So what am I going to do? And so it was around this time that I was at a heavy metal show, and I saw a kid in the mosh pit, a Chinese kid, wearing a shirt that said Hong Kong Pro Wrestling Federation. And so, in between bands, I kind of said, "Hey, what's this shirt?" He's like, yeah, Hong Kong Pro Wrestling. Yeah, we have a wrestling federation here. Yeah, I'm a wrestler. I'm like, "You're a wrestler?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a wrestler." He's like, "Yo, you're big. You want to come to training?" I'm like, "Sure."
And just like that, you're a wrestler.
Yeah, just like that, I'm a wrestler. So I turn up at wrestling training. It's in the far-flung reaches in Hong Kong in this industrial area where it's you get off the train station in some station you've never had a need to go to before. It's miles away, and then on the day I went, there's this kid who I'd met in the mosh pit. His name was Madness. So I meet Madness. And Madness, we go outside the station. Madness walks me up this long hill. And it's like you're walking up this hill and there's a couple of buildings and then a forest behind it on a mountain. And so arguably, this is how a horror film might start.
And you would not come back from this.
Exactly. Madness, who you've known for half an hour in a mosh pit, is taking you up some mysterious hill. Anyway, we finally go into one of these industrial buildings. No human elevator, only cargo elevators. Those big type elevators, right? Get into this. We go up to the 4th floor, which is unlucky in Chinese culture and everything. 4th floor or something. Get out, and it's right next to a factory where they make, in Chinese funerals, they make those paper toys that they burn for the dead.
Yeah.
Right next to a factory where they make this is Hong Kong Wrestling Federation. So he unlocks this dirty door, swings it open, and there's this kind of homemade ring in this room full of dust. It's just this industrial...
Just this old boxing ring, basically.
Well, it was a wrestling ring. The ring was actually very impressive. These kids, because they were 18 and 20 and whatnot, they had found... I think they had purchased plans for a wrestling ring from someone on the internet. And then they had found a way to go and purchase their own steel and fabric and rubber and whatnot. And they had constructed their own ring, which is really quite remarkable, all things considered. They had to get someone in to do the welding and everything. But they have made what was, a pretty decent ring, to be honest. It was a workable ring. But the location was fantastic because the space was just slightly bigger than the ring. So you had, this much space between the ring and the wall. And it was just... The room was like a concrete shell. There were no furnishings, no fittings. There was just dust coming up off the ground because they hadn't put anything on the floor. So it's just a dusty concrete box and a wrestling ring. All right, get in the ring. All right, cool. So in we go. And a month later, I did my first public wrestling match. We pulled an audience into this place. It's fit 50 people or something around this ring, and so I was gonna do my debut, and we're talking about, okay, so you got to go in the ring. What do you want your gimmick to be, and all this, right? And so now I need to rewind a little bit because I had been up until the financial crisis. I've been going out partying and whatnot in Hong Kong wearing a school dress. The reason for this is because I started wearing school dresses to go to parties when I was 14 years old, because a friend of mine had a school uniform party, and I said, I'm going to wear my big school dress to this party, and it was a hit amongst the 14-year-olds. So I then started doing that kind of regularly to go to rock and roll shows and parties and so forth, and it was hilarious. But then when I started doing it in Hong Kong, because that's such a conservative society, they all lost their minds. They're like, you're the funniest person I've ever met in my life. They all went mental for it, right? So I'm like, oh, wow, cross-dressing in Hong Kong. Oh, hey, what I'm talking about. Okay, this is great. So when we're having this discussion about what's your gimmick going to be going to the ring, I'm like, all right. I'm going to wear a skirt, and I'm going to be called Ladybeard. And I'm going to be this cross-dressing foreigner, and for some reason. And the gimmick was always going to be, well, why are you wearing a skirt? Well, why are you wearing a shirt? It was just this giant foreigner who, for some unknown reason, wore a skirt and was very kind and friendly to everybody, but someone would always take an issue with a skirt, and this would lead to the fight. And that was the gimmick originally.
The origin story.
The origin story, that's it.
Lady Beard.
Yeah.
Cool. And so then going into pro wrestling, creating your character Ladybeard
Mm-hmm.
and taking it to Japan.
Well, okay, so I go into the ring. I think I'm going to be this big heel because I'm like, all right, well, I'm this ridiculous, hairy foreigner in a skirt speaking bad Cantonese. Everyone's going to think I'm an idiot. Everyone's going to hate me, right? I go into the ring. Not the case. My first match, overnight, I become the most famous wrestler in Hong Kong because all the other wrestlers didn't really have gimmicks. There's just, what's his gimmick? He is a wrestler. Like, all right. So I was the only person who had any kind of character. So therefore, the audience was like, great fun, right?
Entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Happy days. So overnight became the most famous wrestler in Hong Kong. I'm like, okay, cool. Keeping in mind, I'm trying to still figure out what the hell I'm going to do, to stay alive, considering I've still got this financial crisis. Now there's no work in Hong Kong. There's even less work in Australia than there was. So I'm like, what am I meant to do? So this went really well with this pro wrestling. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm a pro wrestler now. So I start doing more matches with Hong Kong Wrestling Federation, and they're going fine. But there's no financial future for a pro wrestler in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. It's not famous enough. Not enough people come to the shows. There's no way. So I'm like, all right. What happened next was I wanted to start this music project, singing heavy metal covers of Cantonese pop songs. Because when I first got to Hong Kong, I started listening to Cantonese pop to work on my Cantonese language skills. And I said, these are great, catchy pop songs. I wonder who's done the heavy metal covers of them. Turned out nobody had. And I said at some point, well, someone should do that. And then here we are all these years later, and I said, I'm going to do that. Because, this pro wrestling thing had worked out okay. And, everything else has been wiped out already. So screw it, may as well try. So I tried this, and I said, all right, I'm going to do that as this Ladybeard character as well, and then bring my fan base from the wrestling over to my music career, and then tie the two of them up. So we would have storylines running in the ring, and then I'd be going on stage and singing, and I'd have whoever I was feuding with in the ring come and interfere with the music show and all this kind of thing, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was great fun. So we did all kinds of, it was so underground to begin with. We did all kinds of ridiculous things. Like I'd have the guy I'm feuding with in the ring come on stage with a guitar and crack a guitar over my head and all this kind of ridiculous. Yeah, it was so much fun. But so now I'm doing this, yeah? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I got this heavy metal career now, this pro wrestling thing. They're both going simultaneously. But I was talking to the other musicians in Hong Kong, and they're like, yeah, there's no way to make a living from music in Hong Kong, especially heavy metal. They're like, you have to tour. You have to get outside Hong Kong. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I start touring the neighborhood. So I did Taiwan to begin with. And then I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to try touring Japan. Go to Japan. Now I'm singing metal covers of Japanese pop songs. So I didn't speak Japanese at the time. I had to go and just learn the lyrics to these songs phonetically. And then I had my, Pimsleur's Learn Japanese CD that I listened to, so I could say half a sentence when I got here. And, I had my talking in between songs, and I had someone write a script for me, like translate what I wanted to say, learnt that phonetically, and then I had my show. And so I toured to Japan, and that went extremely well because, the Japanese are a unique bunch, as we all know. So, the Japanese said, yep, big, hairy, white man, screaming pop songs in a skirt and also pro wrestling. We love it. So
we want it.
we want it, exactly. So the tour went so well, and I'm like, cool, well, clearly my future's in Japan. So I went back to Hong Kong, basically wrapped things up there, went back to Australia for a bit to prepare, then came to Japan, got hooked up with my first manager, and then photos of me went viral on the internet, and that was essentially the beginning of being a famous person.
So those 6 years in Hong Kong are really like the birth story of
Yeah.
Ladybeard, the kind of the shaping moment, and then Japan is where everything kind of went crazy. And
Yeah,
it
that's
really
right.
started with, I think, Nippon Manju.
That's right, Nippon Manju was when things really blew up.
One of the songs that really blew up. I think now I checked the other day, 38 million views.
Yeah, it's good.
People are still listening.
It's good.
It's like a cult song from
Yeah.
Japanese pop culture now.
Yeah, it's great. We still play it live. Everyone loves it. Everyone pops for it. It's great fun. That's right.
How did this song kind of come to be, and what was it like to kind of get this overnight huge success and suddenly all this media attention?
Well, okay, so how it came to be was, so like I say, I've now moved to Japan. end of 2013, I start working with my first manager. She puts photos of me on the internet and they go viral on Twitter and whatnot. So cool. So my Twitter in, a handful of days goes whoop, 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 and I'm up at 30,000 followers from 0 or something straight away. Cool. And then I was on the cover of Metropolis magazine. You know Metropolis magazine? Yeah, cool. So I'm on the cover of Metropolis. And that was in the airport in Tokyo. And a Chinese businessman was getting off a plane and he saw me on the cover of a magazine and said, "What the hell is that?" And he said, "I want to work with this." But he takes the magazine, takes it back to his office. Turns out he had a Halloween costume manufacturing company. He's like, "I want to work with this fellow." Yeah. He's like, he's showing his staff going, "Look at this, wait, look at this." And they're like, yeah, that's Ladybeard. He's this foreigner who arrived recently and everyone's talking about him. They're like, "Get him in here, get him, I want to work with him." So, okay, we go in for a meeting. He's like, "I want to work with you." I'm like, all right. And I'm thinking he wants to make, like a costume line of the bikini I wear for pro wrestling or something. He's like, "I want to work with you. I just don't know how yet." So, so go home and I'll be in touch. So we go back just doing what we're doing the stuff we're doing. And a month later, he calls us back in for another meeting. And he's like, "All right, I'm going to put you in a pop group with a pair of idols." And so that was my first group that happened. And my first group, our first song was Nippon Manju. And then that blew up on the internet. And that really, that kind of kick-started things at a more global level, because since then I've been working all around the world for 10 years, which has been great. But it's interesting because you say, what's it like having such a sudden success? But it wasn't really a sudden success because I'd already been working my ass off in anonymity for 10 years, So when Nippon Manju happened, from my perspective, that was kind of like, all right, cool. So everything I've done already to this point, keep in mind, I've done like 3 country moves already. I've had to learn a series of different languages. I've had to, I had to start this whole Ladybeard thing by myself and figure out all these skills I didn't know, like female costuming and makeup and production, all this stuff I had no idea how to do before. So I'd been working very, very hard already for 10 years. Then we get to Nippon Manju and I was like, all right, cool. So all that work we've already done basically brought us to the starting line. This is where the actual work begins, right? So as much as it seems like an overnight success, it really wasn't, because I've been preparing for a decade already.
Once you get into this Japanese music industry, then you start, touring, you have your first band that you're on tour with. What was this experience like, kind of going through all the different domes, Tokyo Dome, Osaka Dome, Fukuoka Dome, and kind of performing on these big stages?
I don't think we ever played any of the domes.
Oh.
But we played some decent sized stages. It is first things first. I came to Japan and the plan was I'd be doing 70 to 80% filthy heavy metal with a bit of, cuteness thrown in for spice, right? And then it turns out everyone in Japan wanted me mainly doing the cute stuff with a little bit of heavy metal thrown in for spice, right? So just straight away, that dynamic that I have been, thinking about every day for several years before we got here, straight away almost that gets flipped. So, all right, so straight away you got to deal with that, okay? It's not about disgusting heavy metal anymore. It's about being cute and doing all this cute stuff, right? So now you get put into a pop group with a pair of teenage girls. All right, so now you're a dancer. Figure it out. Figure it out with the same energy and intensity as a pair of girls. They're half your age, half your weight, and female. And we expect you to match their energy and intensity on this dancing that you don't know how to do. Go, you're on stage in 2 weeks. Right? So
a little panic moment there.
Just, what? What are you, what? Like, yep, it's your problem now. Wait, what? So, but you have these moments, and I think at moments like this, you realize inner resources that you didn't necessarily know you had before. Mm-hmm. It's when you're under pressure now of, 2 weeks from now I'm doing this on stage. My options are somehow figure out how to be a dancer in 2 weeks or look like a jackass. And, that could arguably destroy this whole thing in Japan that I've worked so hard to get to already.
If you were to start a heavy metal band back in Australia, you'd find your mates that you like, and you'd just, we need a drummer, we need a guitar player, bass player, I'll scream in a mic, and let's just make music.
That's right.
Here in Japan, especially for these idol groups, it's usually like, let's put these people together and ask them to do something.
Yeah. Things are constructed a lot in Japan, yes.
How does that work? Because you need a sort of chemistry in the group, right? Because you are suddenly this Ladybeard coming in with these 2 teenage girls that maybe have no idea what heavy metal sounds like or is. Maybe they had no interest in this music before, and they suddenly have to make a band where they have to be cute, and you have to be cute and scream.
Yeah. It's a challenge. But that's the paradox of it, right? That's why the group worked and people liked it and found it interesting, because it doesn't make any sense for that combination to happen. But yeah, from a personal perspective, how do you square that circle? Like, I didn't really know what an idol was, really. I'd seen idols, but I didn't know any of the idol culture, really. So now okay, firstly, you're a dancer now, figure it out. Secondly, you have to work with these kids. My Japanese was still really bad, so I can't properly communicate with them. And I don't have the skills of a high school teacher, so I don't really know how to deal with these teenage girls. There's that too. And on top of that, this whole idol culture, because that's a thing unto itself. So until you're familiar with the idol culture and the way things operate in the idol culture and, I guess, the business model and what the girls normally get rewarded for, until you're familiar with that, that's extremely confusing, because we don't have anything like that in the Western world. It's just there's no way you could make that happen in the Western world, right?
So what are those things that for you were really surprising when you started this idol business model? And
Well, everything revolves around the selling of the Polaroid photos after the show, right? So that's and then what if this is for standard issue idol groups, yeah? What I've been doing is different because it's got me, so it can't work in the same way. But if you have a bunch of, 15 to 20-year-old Japanese girls, what really is the business model, what you're really selling is a personal connection between the idol and the fans, or the illusion of a personal connection. So you want the fans to come, you want them to fall in love with one of the girls, and now they'll keep coming back show after show after show after show, spending money on tickets and spending money to buy checkies with the same girl. These Polaroid photos. Mm-hmm. So from a Western perspective, this whole checky culture, at least when I arrived, was very strange, because my attitude would be, but I could just take a photo on my phone for free. Why do I need to pay to get a Polaroid photo? Mm-hmm. Like, I have no attachment to a physical photo. Let me just do it on my phone. No, that's not, because Japan has the culture of doing the Polaroid photos, But how do you know that unless you've been in it? You know what I'm saying? If you're brand new to it, it's just a strange thing that everyone's doing. You don't understand why, but you've been told you have to do it, so you do it. You know what I mean? So there's that. And there's also, like I say, the focus is on getting the fans to have an emotional connection to these girls. And so from my perspective, coming from a background with acting school and, theater and film and so forth, what you're selling is the performance. You're selling the show, and people pay a ticket to see the show. And then if the show emotionally moves them, then that might, inspire them to buy a t-shirt or something after the show. But that's not the case with the idol business model. With the idol business model, it's about, this is kind of crass language, and I apologize for being, kind of crass about it, but it's kind of like pretend boyfriend and girlfriends. The fans come to have contact with their pretend girlfriend, right? Mm-hmm. So again, how would you ever know that if no one's explained it to you and you haven't been in it before, right? So
that was part of the big work that really started once Nippon Manju went viral.
Yeah, because straight up after Nippon Manju, we're doing a lot of stuff in Japan, but we also went overseas pretty quickly. So I know overseas, it's going to be you're selling the show. And like a lot of these idols in Japan, just because they're young, cute girls, they can go on stage and they don't necessarily have to work very hard. They don't have to sing that well. They don't have to dance that well. As long as they're cute and adorable, you'll be able to create an emotional connection with the fans. And that's what's important, right? Mm. In fact, if they're not particularly good on stage, on some level that could be better because it's endearing for the fans. But if you go overseas and you're performing for a bunch of strangers, that doesn't fly anymore. You don't have that same system of the same fans coming back every day again and again. Now you have to sell the performance. So a lot of challenges came with me trying to explain, no, what we're doing in Japan isn't going to work overseas. This is how we need to approach it. Because no one I was the only foreigner. So no one on the Japanese team had ever experienced that before. So, myriads of challenges. And throw in, I had just come from Hong Kong, so I'd already had to learn this other foreign culture. And now I'm in Japan, where now this foreign culture doesn't work anymore. Now it's a new foreign culture, but I'm unconsciously thinking of it like Hong Kong culture. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have this entire first experience was your first group and you discover all these things, and eventually you are starting a second band, Deadlift Lolita.
That's right.
So you kind of now start this with more experience, right?
That's right.
A better impression. How did you go into this second experience, and did you change the music style? Did you change the composition of the band to kind of adapt a little bit to the Japanese music scene?
So with Deadlift Lolita, so Reika was the other girl in the group. So she was also doing the same things as me. She was cute and muscly at the same time. She was doing the bodybuilding and the pro wrestling and everything at the same time. So then when we went on stage, every time I do a show, some character calling himself a pro wrestler takes issue with me and decides to attack me halfway through my performance. These are the occupational health and safety problems Ladybeard deals with every day. But Reika was also a wrestler, right? So now, not only do we have a man wrestler coming on stage, we have some lady wrestler coming on stage and taking issue with everyone on stage. So now the whole thing is, it's half singing and dancing and half big old fight involving everyone on the stage.
This is like a very kind of Japanese music scene type of music, but you've also performed overseas.
Yes, that's right.
How is a fan interaction with those different kind of fan bases in different areas with completely different cultural backgrounds?
So the fans overseas, normally the ones we perform to are at anime conventions and so forth. So they're otakus. So a lot of them are into Japan and they're into the Japanese stuff and they want to do things the Japanese way, as it were. So a lot of them will want to behave similarly to a Japanese audience, but still they're not Japanese. It's still culturally, they're not the same thing. But then a lot of them also are kind of casual fans, casual attendees, and they're just at the convention and then they see our show too. So they're sort of, pedestrian kind of, Westerners as such. So they're not familiar with any of this culture. So yeah, that's a challenge. How do you perform for, not only have you displaced things culturally, as in from a skin color level culture, but now you've got half the audience that's into this Japan stuff and you need to satisfy them, and half the audience who isn't really super hot in the Japan stuff and you need to satisfy them, but you've only got one performance, so how do you do that? These are the challenges.
The theme, I think, is called Kawaii core.
That's correct.
Right? It's this mix between Kawaii culture and this heavy metal.
And hardcore and heavy metal, that's right.
How is this kind of evolving over the years? Is it the same as when you really got started 10 years ago?
I guess it naturally evolves just based upon getting experience, and therefore when you make new songs, you have a better idea of what you're good at and what the audience wants to see from you. So to that end, it kind of evolves naturally and organically. But I mean, I never sat down and said, now it's going to evolve like this. It just it evolves naturally over time. I don't really have a good answer for that. Currently, I'm doing a group called Babybeard, which is more or less the same as the first group. It's me and two young girls, and it sounds almost exactly the same.
So this is now your newest band.
That's right. Babybeard is what we're doing now.
How did this one come to be? How did you kind of regroup around this trio?
The first group went bad, and so that was over, and we were doing Deadlift Lolita, but a lot of people kept telling me they really liked the formation of me with the two girls. So I wasn't able to do that for a while, because after the first group, there was some politics and some messy nonsense that had to get sorted out. But once I was in a position when I could do that, I said, I changed management companies in 2019. I said to my new boss, let's do this again, because everyone's told me they want to see it, so let's do it. So that's how that came to be. So we held auditions for the girls, and we found some girls who were good, and we were ready to hit the ground running, and then we had a pandemic. So, so we were stuck inside for a while.
So how did you adapt to this kind of pandemic and the absence of live performance? Or
I don't think we did, to be frank. I don't think we did. Like, we did what we could, did what online stuff we could, but
it's not the first time you have to deal with this kind of a financial crisis.
Well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, but it's the first time you've not been allowed to leave the house, So, okay, so now what do? Everyone's made it very clear. Everyone that you would consider the market from a business standpoint has made it very clear. Here's what we want to see. We want to see you in a colorful skirt, screaming and dancing, with two little girls in colorful skirts, singing and dancing. We want that, live show of that, and music videos, colorful music videos of you guys running around Tokyo. All right. You can't do live performances, and you can't go outside to film. So I mean, I don't think, I don't think we did particularly adapt well to the pandemic at all. We just waited till it was over. We Really very little choice. So for our first music video, Nihon Kara Konnichiwa, all right, so we have to shoot inside. And during the pandemic, if you recall, everyone was getting really ridiculous on the social media about pandemic stuff. So if someone has a photo of you standing too close to someone else, they'd get upset and everything, right? So, okay, so we're going to figure out a way to make this music video without upsetting anyone. So we shoot inside and it's at a sound stage. All right. And then we all have to shoot individual cuts separately. And then if the three of us are on camera at the same time, we all need to be at least 2 meters apart. So already it's getting kind of challenging.
Especially for a wrestler.
So, right, exactly. We then realize on the first day we turn up to shoot, we realize it's a green screen we're working with and we have green on our costumes. So we're like, oh, God, we can't wear these costumes. So we have to replan everything. So somehow we made that happen. The second music video, we said, we're going to go shoot outside. But, you couldn't shoot outside at normal times when there were people around. So we're in Harajuku at like 5 a.m. or something, just the second the sun was up. We're in Takeshita shooting this video because that was the only time where there weren't any people there who were going to get upset with us. So that was the extent to which we were able to adapt to the pandemic.
But now the band is back, it's touring.
Yep.
And you're performing again.
Yep.
Like the original kind of composition you had.
Happy days.
Do you have a memory from one of your favorite performances that you had?
So with Baby Beard, we did a huge show in Chile in 2023, which was really great. It was this gigantic, it was like a half gaming convention, half music festival thing, and it was in a soccer stadium, and it was wonderful. We were on the second stage, which was outside in this forest. Really beautiful, great video package behind us. This was a great show because it's outdoors, which is in a very temperate climate, which is really lovely. Really great production, and 3,000 very, very, very warm fans. Latin Americans are wonderful audiences because they're so warm and passionate as a people, right? So I love performing in Latin America. It's great fun. So that was really wonderful because we had this time of the freaking pandemic and it had been so hard to get anything done. The first time we went overseas after the pandemic, because it happened during the flipping pandemic, the times when we finally could get on stage in Japan, it was just absurd because you've got a room that's designed for 300 people and you're only allowed to have like 20 in there or something.
So you have to stand really far apart.
Your audience is all spaced out. They're wearing these masks and they're not allowed to make any noise with their voices and they can't move. So they just stand. So you've got,
especially for heavy metal.
Oh, bro, your audience is like this spaced out audience of ninja mannequins. And then after each song you get, and that's all, right? So you're pouring out energy and just nothing comes back. So I kept saying to the girls, look, I know this is not ideal. Please just wait till this pandemic's over. Please just wait till we can go overseas. I promise you it's a lot more fun than this normally. And then actually our first show post-pandemic overseas was in Brazil. Again, Latin American, right? Super warm audience. We got to Brazil in 2022. The Brazilians did not care about this virus at all by the time we got there. So before we've even made it to the stage, just woo, just everyone screaming and going nuts. We're backstage getting ready to go on, and the girls look at me and they're like, "Oh, I'm like, yep, this is how it's supposed to be.
This is what you've been waiting for.
This is what you've been waiting for." Because the two girls in Baby Beard, they both essentially started their idol careers with this group. So they didn't know what it was like pre-pandemic. So this was, for them, the beginning of their idol journey was this strange ninja mannequin audience. And I kept saying, please, just hang in there until I promise it gets better.
You started your career doing kind of more cinema or voice recording, where you're in a studio, you're on a set, and take 1, take 2, take 3.
Yeah.
Now you do a lot of live performance and everything. Your character is all about your presence on stage. How do you adapt to this kind of change? Do you miss sometimes being more like on TV and film and acting and taking your character to like in front of a camera rather than in front of an audience?
I mean, they're two different dynamics, aren't they? I love both of them. It's apples and oranges. They're just two different things. There's a lot of times on stage when I wish we could do a take 2. A lot of things go wrong on stage.
Is there a big fail coming to mind right now?
We in Deadlift Lolita when we were in Madrid one time in Spain, And whilst I was being assaulted on stage, which happens almost every show, by some clown calling himself a pro wrestler, I botched a technique which is called a moonsault. I went to do a moonsault off a stage. It's basically you backflip onto another person, right? So I went edge of the stage, I went to moonsault onto the other wrestler, and I botched it completely and hit my head on the end of the stage. Yep. Slashed open my scalp.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had to stop the show, had to get ambulance to hospital and so forth. So I would have loved to have had another crack at that one. Tell you what though, this was so funny.
Or rather, no crack.
Well, this was so good though, because it's the first time I've ever been in an ambulance, so that was exciting. They strap you to a bed and you stare at a mirror on the ceiling so you can see just how terrible you look. And so then we get to the hospital, they pull me out. They're like, you're not allowed to walk, get in this wheelchair. I'm like, all right. So I'm still in my stage attire fully, right? I'm, covered in blood. I got my makeup smeared everywhere. I got my pigtails like pinned behind my head. And I'm wearing a Lolita skirt, sitting in this wheelchair, big hairy Australian. I get wheeled in, and the emergency room doors open up. And little to my knowledge, that weekend was also Carnivale in Brazil. So we walk in, and all the doctors go, "Carnivale, okay!" Start partying. What am I up? Yeah. I've had a Carnivale-oriented injury. Please stitch me.
In Hong Kong, you kind of created this character, Ladybeard, took it to Japan, and for the past 30 minutes or so, we've been talking about how this character really took over Japan and the world. What has your Japan experience been like when you're not in character, when you're not on stage performing for your audience?
Well, I mean, as you're going to know, the Japanese people are lovely. Japan's a very wonderful place to live in terms of all the things that everyone normally says. The food is great. Safety is excellent. In Japan, people, as in strangers, will kind of leave you alone. That's something Kathy was saying in her interview. You can kind of do what you like in public. And if you're not breaking any laws, people will leave you alone to do your thing. So that's really great. There is a lot of things that must be gotten used to. So, as I'm sure, again, you will know from working with Japanese people, the Japanese are used to doing things. The Japanese are used to doing things a particular way. Mm-hmm. And they don't like you to turn up and want to do things differently for that particular way. But it's been my experience that you can only really learn this whole thing just through osmosis and through being here and doing it with Japanese people. So even if you have someone, if you arrive and someone says to you, this is the way it must be done, you can understand it academically, but you can't feel it, right? It's only when you go into Japanese culture and you work with the Japanese over a long period of time, and then you start to feel at the start, the Japanese are so polite, so they won't tell you when you're the person doing something weird. Mm-hmm. But then over time, you start to feel the way everyone behaves, and then someone else will turn up and you'll see them doing something weird, and now you can feel it, and you go, oh, he's doing something weird. And so
you're like, I've been doing this for the past 5 years. I should better change that.
That's when you look back and you go, okay, so I did that weird, and I did that weird, and I did that weird, and I did that weird. But again, that's, culture is something you can really only learn by being in it and through osmosis, right? What do you reckon? I'm sure you've had similar experiences because you've moved around a lot. So you would have had this experience going culture to culture to culture.
Are you trying to flip the table on me right now?
I'm trying to engage in a discussion, Toby. But no, because you would have gone from all these, from France, Ireland and Hong Kong and all these places, you would have had a similar experience. When you've already left your own culture and you learn this new culture, and then you got to go to yet another culture, and now there's a new learning curve that begins. So what do you reckon? Coming to Japan, did you find yourself culturally confused?
I wouldn't say so. I think similar, as you discover everything is new and you kind of observe and you adapt. I think if you come here with an open mind and you just don't necessarily come with intention of I'm just gonna do things my way everywhere, it's kind of not really a big deal. What's interesting though is if you have been to other places before and you pick up other cultural norms in China, in Hong Kong, in other European countries, and you observe all of those different things, and then when you hear, you can see things that are similar to one culture but not the other, and then you're like, okay, how do you kind of adapt?
This messed me up as well because coming from Hong Kong, there were cultural similarities on certain levels between Hong Kong and Japan. So therefore, coming to Japan, you think you get it already, but you don't get it. That's the Hong Kong way. The Japan way is different. So that will cause problems for me as well. especially communication. Hong Kong communication is very direct, right?
Very direct.
Very direct.
I mean, I would come into work and they'd poke my stomach and be like, "Oh, you gained fat."
Yeah, that's every day in Hong Kong they were going to be, "You are so fat." They say that every day. But in Japan, it's the opposite, right? Everything's super indirect. So if they want to say you've gained weight, they'll say, the weather's nice today. You know, it's totally unrelated, right?
Where do you want to take your life now here in Japan? You've been here for over a decade performing.
Right. That's right.
How do you want to develop your character and your band into the next half of this decade?
Well, I have a lot of career goals. I'll summarize it by saying world domination.
That's why you wanted to play the game Dominion.
Exactly right. Ladybeard must domin. I must domin. Exactly.
So what's your plan for world domination?
Oh, listen. Hey, listen. Divide and conquer, my friend. Divide and conquer. Every territory one by one. First, you get the money. Then you get the power. Then, listen, this table is really holding up very well under the pressure, under the circumstances. Still going well. Let me just have a sip of fluids real quick. I'll turn out to the double camera to sip these fluids. I'll do it like a commercial. Watch this.
Perfect. Good thing that no brand labels.
No branding, it's borderless. That's what's going on here. Borderless fluids, my friends. That's what's up.
So world domination, divide and conquer. First, you need the money.
I was quoting Scarface.
Oh, I don't think I've seen. I didn't get the reference.
I didn't want to finish the quote because it's not appropriate for the Unpacking Japan podcast. You can watch the film Scarface, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
I'll put it to my watch list.
You said that with such a lack of enthusiasm. I'll put it to my watch list.
So, yeah, I'm curious. How do you develop these characters that you've already spent so much time crafting, from the origin story to performing on 3 different bands? How do you see this character evolving moving forward?
Well, I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to do, but I don't. To be honest, I don't necessarily want to tell you about it. One of the things I've learned is not to go publicly talking about my goals, because a lot of the things that happen, I have learned, you have your plan of what you intend to have happen. And then there's the way things work out.
Like when you came here and you wanted to do a heavy metal band with some cute, and then you ended up doing a lot of cute.
A cute show with some heavy metal, exactly right. So, yeah, and a lot of the things that happen, people will ask you, so, you know, with this new group, you've done the following, so why did you make that decision? And a lot of the time it comes down to, that's the way it worked out. That's what was possible at the time, under the circumstances, that was going to work for what we needed it to work for, you know? So, therefore, I'm actually reluctant to talk about my future goals. Don't worry, I've got plenty of goals and ambitions, but I'm gonna keep them in the bag for right now, I'm afraid.
Do you feel like this is all part of the creative process, to kind of just be fluid in a way and just adapt to the circumstances and take in your environment as it comes?
I think so. I think it's a case of you need to know what you're trying to achieve. You need to know why you're trying to achieve it, and you must plan, but then you must also remain flexible in the way you're going to achieve it. There was some military commander who said something along the lines of, it's been my experience that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. So I'm misquoting him, but something to those lines. So yeah, remaining flexible is an integral part of things. I'd say if people have the Japan dream and they want to go to Japan and do whatever they plan to do in Japan, I think that'd probably be my advice to them. Know what you're trying to do, know why you're trying to do it, plan for it properly, and then remain flexible and open to new experiences. And be good. Do a good job. That's the other thing I think I would say.
Well, kind of like Kathy was saying to us, to do the work, put in the work. And
put in the work. Wow.
Work your way through the challenges and just build up your life here in Japan.
Yeah, 100%. And like we were saying before, you're gonna, if you're not Japanese, you're gonna get here and you're gonna mess things up. So don't actively try to mess things up, but just know that's gonna happen, and just that's part of the learning process. Apologize, but understand you'll learn it, you'll feel it over time.
For people that are maybe specifically interested in going into the entertainment and music industry in Japan, what kind of advice would you want to give them?
Well, everything I just said. Be good. Make sure your work is actually good. When I first got here, it was like my second show or something I did here. I was doing some other Arbeito thing, some English teaching, whatever. And so one of the guys from Arbeito, he said he was going to come and watch the show. And he said, yeah, one of the other guys saw your other show. And he told me about it. He told me it was really good. So now I'm going to come. Because when I first heard about it, I heard big, hairy, white dude doing Japanese pro wrestling, cross-dressing, heavy metal J-pop. That's either going to be amazing or terrible. So put in the work and make sure your work is amazing, because you don't want to be the foreigner turned up and was terrible.
I think there has been a few guests on the show already that talked about something similar,
Really?
where there's a high expectation for quality here, and people will wait to hear and see if something is really worth it, and you have to really make it good.
You really
If
do.
not, you lose them immediately, and they will not kind of come back.
Yeah. So you see it when you do, if you're in music, when you do live shows here, and if you're on a show with a bunch of other acts, a lot of the time, the audience will, when they're finished with the act they came to see, they'll all leave the room, right? But sometimes that's not possible. But at very least, a lot of the time, people will go to the back of the room or something, right? And so you know you're doing a good job if this happens. If you go on stage and you start your work, and then everyone who's at the back then moves to the front of the room, that means you've done a very good job. And it's emotionally extremely rewarding when that happens as well, because that means what you're doing is creating value for the audience. I have no end to that sentence.
I have a new question for you, though.
Hit me.
In this decade of experience in the music industry,
Yeah.
have you seen a general change in how it's working and how it's maybe integrating more foreigners as well into...
More foreigners, no, but it's getting more globalized because of the internet, especially post-pandemic, and especially now with TikTok and that. Do you remember 10 years ago, the internet was slow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you couldn't, TikTok and that wouldn't work from a technical standpoint. But now you can absorb so much so quickly. So both this is getting seen overseas more, but also the Japanese are seeing more foreign stuff. There's a lot more tourists here now, so foreigners are far more common. In terms of entertainment, there's the whole element of people can just do it themselves, like all the influencers and so forth. So there's that element that's coming in, and that's kind of become its own side of the industry into itself. But in terms of the Japanese side of things, no, I don't think I see more foreigners as such entering the business.
So it's more like the being able to do it from home, people performing at home, doing music from home, that is shaking up a little bit how things work, because the industry needs to adapt to this, right? So you see small groups popping up here on social media and then kind of being taken on by a label perhaps, or production company.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happening. I'm sure there are people who, get discovered through social media and so forth and then get picked up.
Because you're one of the few, I would say, bands that are kind of originating in Japan that is also performing a lot internationally, right? You see K-pop performing worldwide, but J-pop is still more like a niche. It's kind of contained
Still
within Japan.
Domestically, isolated. I think that comes down to the Japanese artists and companies themselves, to be honest. There's massive demand for it overseas, but generally speaking, the Japanese artists and companies, in my experience, are not too hot on the idea of getting outside Japan and servicing that market. Some of the artists themselves want to. They're like, yeah, we get to go overseas. Yeah, let's totally do it. But again, culture. I think from a Japanese standpoint, I think if you're born and raised here, the outside world just seems so foreign and so confusing. A lot of them like the idea, but when it comes to actually doing it, they get deer in the headlights.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of the artists here have a limiting belief set. They have an idea of, no, I can't go overseas unless I speak perfect English. And no, I can't go overseas because, I don't know, because I don't like cake or, something. So,
Great example.
but that's what I've seen a lot of in Japan. Foreign artists are much more, in my experience, much more aggressive about the idea of coming to Japan. A lot of foreign artists want to come to Japan and want to do stuff in Japan. And there are some Japanese artists that want to go overseas. But I see them having a lot of limiting beliefs about it. And then I see the companies not knowing how to do it and being terrified of the idea of changing because, Japan has its way of doing things, as we already discussed. And They don't like the idea of doing anything but that, you know.
One thing we haven't really talked about yet is collaborations in this music industry, and you have collaborated with different artists. How does this usually come about? Is it just you get to know the person and you want to, let's do a song together, which is common in the West, but here it seemed like the companies, the producing companies, are more controlling of who does what with whom and how.
Yeah, it's sometimes the companies. Normally, it's been my experience. Normally, you don't know each other at all. Someone reaches out to someone, and it can be the artist or it can be a representative like a company, and say, let's do a thing together. And if the pieces fit, you'll say, okay. And then you go in and you work with that person. It's, I can't, try to think of my various collaborations. I can't think of any person I've collaborated with who I knew before the collaboration. So
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Is there anyone you'd like to collaborate with?
Yeah, I have. I don't think it's going to work anymore because I think people are retiring. But I would like to do a three-way superstar group with Ladybeard, Kawaii Pumyu, and Nicki Minaj. I think that'd be awesome. Yeah. That's a combination the world has not seen before.
And that's a combination the world is waiting to see.
That's a combination the world needs. Oi, Nicki, hook it up, my friend.
Nicki Minaj, if you're
Nicki
watching
Minaj.
this.
Yeah. So Kawaii Pumyu. So Harajuku girly J-pop. Ladybeard. Japan/Aussie Kawaii metal, and then Nicki Minaj, African American female rap. Hey, I've never seen those three things in the same place before. I think that'd be amazing.
I think so too. Ladybeard, we covered quite a lot of topics.
We have.
Your
This
story-
table needs more destroying.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on here? With this, we have not injured enough things. Continue.
Is there anything that you would have liked to share with our audience today that you haven't gotten a chance to talk about your work, about your podcast, perhaps?
Oh, yes,
Cat
my
with
podcast.
Beard, that we're gonna record right after
We
this.
are. We're about. Yes, you're going to be a guest on Cat with Beard from Japan.
Yeah.
This we really will flip it now.
Or
now.
rather, by the time this is out, I will have been already.
Exactly right. Yes, so the questioner would become the questionee.
So besides music, you still do a lot of other kind of ventures in
Yeah,
podcasting.
do a bunch of stuff. I've got my podcast, Cat with Beard from Japan. Please check out Cat with Beard from Japan. Me and the adorable Kathy Cat. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Please check out my group Baby Beard. I'd be very grateful for that. Please follow me on the social media at Ladybeard_Japan. Thank you all very kindly. And prepare for world domination. Dominion on the part of Ladybeard. It's Lady Dominion. That's what it is. Hey, Earth in pigtails. That's what we're calling the project. Project Pigtail Earth. Coming at you, Earth.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This has been great fun. Thank you for having me. And hey, keep watching Unpacking Japan. Give the audience a spiel about Unpacking Japan. Give them your sales pitch.
A sales pitch on the spot like this, an elevator
Unpacking
pitch.
Japan is the greatest podcast in the history of podcasts relating to Japan. Hey, when was the last time you unpacked Japan? Not today. Well, it was today, actually, wasn't it? We just did Unpacking Japan. Hey! Keep listening to Unpacking Japan. That was terrible. That was horrible. I can't believe how bad that was.
But thank you so much for your time today.
pleasure, bro.
And,
Thank you for having me.
sharing your story was really interesting to see kind of the person behind the character and hear
man.
how this all came to be. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching to this week's episode of Unpacking Japan. Thank you, Ladybeard, for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you, Toby.
And here we go. We can do the signing off.
Let's do it.
Unpacking Japan. Are you looking for another podcast episode to listen to next? If you like the one you just listened to, I'm sure you'll also enjoy the one that I've selected and linked in the description down below. Go check it out.